Hey, leaders, have you ever struggled with stepping into those tough conversations? Do you find it hard to mediate conflicts and hold your team accountable? Well, we've got just the thing for you, a free resource called How to Step into the Hard Conversations Using the ACDC Method. Leaders must address the hard stuff. That's part of the job. But let's face it, not everyone has the skills to navigate these tricky dialogues effectively. And that's where the ACDC method comes in. This powerful approach helps leaders like you resolve conflicts with a focus not just on the resolution, but on reconciliation and a clear path forward. Most of the work happens before you even step foot in front of the other person. With the ACDC method, you'll learn to accept the challenge, check your ego, decide the real issue, and converse effectively. Whether you're dealing with a minor disagreement or a major incident, this method is your go-to guide. So, ready to transform your leadership and tackle those tough conversations head on? Download How to Step into the Hard Conversations using the ACDC method for free. Visit leadershipontherocks.com/conflict and start leading with confidence and clarity. Again, make sure to download our free resource and turn conflict into a constructive conversation. Visit leadershipontherocks.com/conflict now.
Because God's whole goal is our restoration and rescue, that He will do it again and again and again. And that's what allows you to, even when life is hard and those life's 2x4s are pummeling you, you can choose joy. You can, because you know that God has your best interest at heart and His goal is for your redemption and rescue.
This is the Leadership on the Rocks podcast, where we equip and empower leaders like you to thrive in and create harmony between your professional and personal lives. I'm your host, Bethany Reese, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking with author Cindy Brinker Simmons about how to be restored with strength and victory after experiencing hardship. Cindy Brinker Simmons is a graduate of the University of Virginia and a public relations veteran. Cindy is the author of Restored: Reconnecting Life's Broken Pieces. She established in memory of her mother and renowned tennis champion, Maureen Connolly Brinker, and is a board member of Wipe Out Kids Cancer, Dallas's oldest pediatric cancer nonprofit. Cindy is president of the Maureen Connolly Brinker Tennis Foundation, an internationally respected junior tennis organization. She serves on the board of Dallas Theological Seminary, Theological Horizons, and Wipe Out Kids Cancer. She lives in Dallas and has a son, William. Her husband, Robert, passed away in 2005 from cancer. All net proceeds from the Restored book sales are donated to Wipe Out Kids Cancer and the Maureen Connolly Brinker Tennis Foundation. You can connect with Cindy at brinkersimmons.com. Welcome to the Leadership on the Rocks podcast, Cindy. We are so happy to have you.
Oh, Bethany, it's a great joy and great pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Well, I am so excited to talk to you, and I know that we're going to dive in kind of deep about leaders going through hardship. We know they go through hardship, but before we go into all that deep, heavy, emotional type stuff, I actually want to start on the light side.
Yes.
And I want to talk about your parents, because we know that parents mold us into who we are, and you just so happen to have two extremely talented, awesome parents. So can you explain to us, just give us a little snapshot of who your parents are and how awesome they are?
Thank you. And I will say amen to that. God really blessed my little sister Brenda and me with two extraordinary parents. Number one, they were extraordinary what they did, but to Brenda and myself, they were extraordinary because in their DNA, they taught us how to give back and to love well. My dad was a businessman and he was in the restaurant business. And so that was his business. And he started a number of restaurants and ended up his career with Chili's and was involved with that through his company, Brinker International. And there are many different restaurants that were spawned from that, from the early 1960s Steak and Ale. He created that in Bennigan's and then ultimately enjoyed Chili's. So that was fun. And he was also quite an athlete, Bethany, and he was a member of the Olympic team in the equestrian side of the Olympics. And also that was in 52 and then competed in the 1954 modern pentathlon. But not to be outdone was my mom. And she was, as you said, number one in the world in tennis. She was number one in 1952, 53, 54. She won Wimbledon 3 years in a row and was the first woman and still the only American woman to win the calendar Grand Slam. Literally, she played in 9 Slam events, which are Australia, French, Wimbledon, and the US Open. And winning the calendar Grand Slam means you win all four of those in one calendar year. And she did that in 1953. But she played nine of those Grand Slam tournaments and won every time and only dropped one set. And she's in the International Tennis Hall of Fame. But what I love to say, and my sister loved to say about mom, and so did my dad, and this can be said of my dad too, is that mom was a remarkable woman who just happened to be a very good tennis player. Because again, as I just said a moment earlier, is in my parents' DNA was the idea of being other focused, giving back, loving well, and helping others. And that's what I look at as their legacy.
Man, and what a beautiful legacy that is. And what a
Mm,
foundation for you and your sister and now
yes,
your son, just moving
yes.
on down that legacy of what we model. And I love what you said. The title of she just so happened to be the tennis player, but she was a good person. And I know you
Yes.
and I talked previously. Your dad had a saying, and I love this, and I want the listeners to hear this. What did your dad used to tell you about
This,
being a leader?
absolutely. This was really influential and impacting. And I speak and say this many, many times. Dad was certainly a successful man by all standards. And so I grew up as I've said, in a family of winners. I mean, they had goals, they pursued their dreams, and both my mom and my dad, because of hard work and intelligence, and my mom practice, they did well. So my dad said to me once, he said, Cindy, it doesn't matter if you have the capabilities to lead. And that was foreign because everything I have learned from dad was about leading and about
Mhm.
moving forward and pursuing your dreams. And I thought that was a little odd. But he said, Cindy, it doesn't matter whether you have the capabilities to lead. What matters is, are you worthy to be followed?
Oh,
And that
that's
is
so
so
good.
profound, Bethany, because that's so true. There are many leaders in history we have seen, good leaders and evil leaders who have on the negative evil side great value in being public influencers and
Mhm.
speaking and swaying their targeted audience to do what they say, but their purposes are
Mhm.
mean-spirited or ill-willed or evil. So
Yes.
they are good at what they do, but they're not worthy to be followed. And so the question is what we're doing, Bethany, and all that we're doing, are we doing it? Are we conducting ourselves in a way that glorifies God? Are we conducting ourselves in a way that's honorable, that's fair play, that's good sportsmanship, that's integrity based, that has an
Mhm.
attitude of gratitude and giving back? And again, always glorifying God, who was the perfect model of someone to be followed.
Absolutely. Honestly, everything you just said, we could just stop right now and just say that's the end of the episode. That's really all you need to know. Is it doesn't even matter about your ability to lead. Are you worthy to be followed? Is your heart
Yeah,
and character and your intent and your purpose and your vision aligned to something that is glorifying God and serving others? So that
yes,
is just
yes.
so, so good. And I just love all that your parents taught you. I love what you're doing and how you're leading with Wipe Out
Thank
Kids
you.
Cancer
Thank
and
you.
everything that you're doing. And now we have a book. So let's get to the reality of it. You know, leaders just like your parents, they had big vision, big goals. Your mom winning, the Grand Slam, your dad, oh my goodness, the Olympics with equestrian, as well as, opening all of these amazing restaurant chains that we love and adore, right? I love me some
Yes,
Chili's,
yes.
baby back ribs, I got all that, right?
Baby back ribs, exactly.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
so they were so successful and they had big dreams. However, we know that just because you have a good heart and you have big vision or big dreams doesn't mean the path and the journey is easy. In
No.
fact, it's actually guaranteed to not be, right? I think automatically, I think it's John 16:33. In this world, you will have trouble.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
there's the declaration statement, but take heart because Jesus has overcome the world, is the rest of that.
Amen.
And
Amen.
so I want to transition now because you are such a leader, not only in the positive ways. I mean, you're on boards of so many organizations
Oh,
leading so well in a positive way, but you're leading a whole bunch of people down a hard, hard path that nobody wants to be on, right? We don't like hardship. We don't like going through
no.
grief. We don't like going through conflict. On the podcast, we talk so much about problems, conflicts, constraints all day, every day in
Yes,
leadership.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I would like to start diving into your book. It's called Restored, Reconnecting Life's Broken Pieces. For the leaders out there who are going through hardship, and this could be hardship personally, because we know that your personal life is going to spill over into your professional life. It just
Yes, yeah,
does. Or it could be going through hardship professionally. Either way, there's
yes,
going to come a moment where you're going to feel broken and shattered. So, will
yes.
you start us off by sharing your own story of times in your life where you felt broken or shattered?
Absolutely, Bethany. Thank you. Well, the underlying premise of the book, which is the underlying premise of God, which you have been so faithful and articulate in explaining, Bethany, is that suffering is a universal experience. I mean, none of us are immune from the bumps and bruises of daily living. I mean, it's called suffering and it can be painful. Truly, it can. And it started in my life, and really the genesis of this book is when I was 12. I was seated on a very uncomfortable pew seat next to my 10-year-old sister and my 38-year-old dad. We had just buried my 34-year-old mom. So here my mom, who literally her last year of competitive play, Bethany, did not lose a tennis match, had one foe, had one opponent she couldn't beat, and that was ovarian cancer. And she passed at age 34. Again, I was 12, my little sister was 10, and my dad was in his later 30s, 38. And I sat on that pew seat so brokenhearted, so angry, so confused because this beautiful woman, this talented mom, had literally been taken from us. And so I really thought, Bethany, that God was angry at me. I thought I had done something so bad, so terrible, so unforgiving that I was incurring the wrath of a vengeful God. Now, I don't know why I was thinking that. And if my dad had known I was thinking that, he would have said, "Oh, no, Cindy, honey, you had nothing to do with this." But I think children sometimes take on the hardships of their family. Sometimes maybe children whose families go through divorce think that perhaps they were part of the problem. But for some reason, Bethany, I thought that I had done something so wrong. So I was incurring this anger of a rageful God. And
Yes.
also at the time, while our family was mourning the loss of mom, although, as you have said, mom was known as mom to me, she was known to her adoring public in the 1950s as a tennis champion, Little Mo. And so the world, literally, mom's seismic loss was pronounced all over the world. So we shared, and that kind of exacerbated a little bit of our mourning because it just never went away because there were so many articles written about that.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally thought that God really hated me. So that's where I parked my 12-year-old heart. So, life beckons on and we can't stay in neutral forever. So then I graduated from high school, graduated from college, and I came back to Dallas, began a really a robust, exciting year in public relations and was enjoying Dallas and a lot of activities, was involved with ministries. And a man walked into my life that captured my heart, Bob Simmons. And we had a great friendship that blossomed into a great Christ-centered love. And so we married, and we even added little William to our family. And we were about to adopt a little girl. And that's when life hit again. And with four terrifying words: "Bob, you have cancer."
Mm.
And yet, yes, that we fought it. We did everything we could in our cancer journey. And yet 3 years later, we buried Bob with William, my 9-year-old son, at my side. But Bethany, this time it was different. This time it was different because this time I knew that God. This time I
Mhm.
knew that God loved me with an unwavering love, with a boundless love, with an outrageous grace. He loved me. And that hole in my heart that I had had when my mom died, there was a hole in my heart that had started. And that when Bob passed, that hole expanded. But yet, even though my heart was still broken, I could put joy in that heart, even though my
Mm.
circumstances were difficult, because a number of years earlier, I'd met the daughter of a pastor who had shared with me that God loved me with this unwavering love, that I couldn't earn his love, that he wasn't mad at me, that he loved
Mhm.
me as much now as he would ever love me. He
Yeah.
loved me well. And so I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And that made all the difference in the world. It was a game changer. And as a matter of fact, when Bob and I were going through our cancer journey, when Bob got the diagnosis that he would have 3 months to live. We were only given 3 months by
Oh,
God's
wow.
outrageous grace. We had 3 years. William was 6 when Bob was diagnosed, 9 when Bob was called home to be with the Lord. Bob said to me, he said, "Sweetie pie." He called me Sweetie Pie. I called him Beloved. "Sweetie
Oh,
pie, I don't know if I have 3 months, 3 years, or 30 years, but today we are going to walk out of this oncologist's office and we are going to glorify the Lord. In everything we do, we are going to choose joy." Bob gave us a mission statement that no matter what the circumstances that we could not control,
hmm.
that we would choose joy and that we would glorify God. And Bethany, that's what Bob and I did. And it
Wow.
changed people's lives. And even my dad came to know Christ through it. So when you know the Lord, you know that no matter what
Hmm.
he happens, he does call us to be joyful. And when we know and we are reminded of God's goodness and grace, and that we know, and a key thing that I talk about in the book is don't forget to remember what God has done for you in the past to
Hmm.
rescue you, to redeem you, to restore you, because God's whole goal is our restoration and rescue, that he will do it again and again and again. And that's what allows you to, even when life is hard and those life's 2x4s are pummeling you, you can choose joy. You can,
Oh,
because you know that God has your best interest at heart and his goal is for your redemption and rescue.
I love
And
it. And
that's why I wrote the book.
and we need this book. And I love that you just said life's 2x4s hitting you
Oh,
because sometimes it feels that way.
whew.
You
Yes,
experienced, I would think, the hardest thing to experience here on earth, and that's grieving loved ones. And so many leaders, we experience hardships, but not of that level. And here you are after having gone through those hardships. And now you are leading your son without your partner, your partner in life, the person who's supposed to walk, down that entire journey as you send your kid off into high school and
yes,
college and marriage and all
yes,
those things.
yes,
And I just love how you're guiding us on this journey as we go through hardships because the way that you started off, your 12-year-old self, I so identified with that. Early in life, as you go through hardships, and again, personal, professional, it's kind of the same. You tend to
oh,
say,
absolutely.
I am the sinner in the hand of an angry God.
Yeah,
Uh, he's mad
yes,
at me. What did I do? And it really affects your relationship. But I love that by the time you got to the tragedy of your husband, it was a different circumstance because you knew Christ,
yes,
right? You are not going
absolutely.
to escape hardship, leaders. You are not
No,
going to
no.
be exempt from that just because you're a believer. But it is such a better journey to go through the hardship with the love of Jesus, with the grace of Jesus, with the strength. Oh, the strength of that.
Yes,
And
yes.
why
So
why did you feel so compelled to help others go through this journey of hardship, to come alongside, the readers and help them through their pain?
yes, yes. And Bethany, just to totally support what you said, the word says that God says, don't be surprised by the fiery ordeals that
Yeah.
are beseeching you because there is an enemy. And we find in John 10:10 the job description that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroys. And then further along in his word, it says that he's the father of lies. So the
Hmm.
enemy is right there with we have to remember that misery is just as much a part of life as joy because we've got an enemy who's really trying to destroy us, steal our joy, steal our success, steal our relationships, break those relationships. And that's part
Hmm.
of why life is so hard because our relationships are broken. We do things that we know we shouldn't do. But the reason I want to help people is number one, the Bible says to do that. In 2 Corinthians 1 3 through 5, it says that God is the God of comfort. He is the Father of encouragement, and He has encouraged and loved us well, so that in turn, we, as our duty, can comfort and encourage others well. And I take that very, very seriously because God took this little broken 12-year-old, and I was so broken. When mom died, it was like a vacuum, Bethany, had come, just
Hmm.
descended from the heavenlies and had just sucked out all the joy in our home. My dad and I were so close. He passed away in 2009, but he was so awesome. He loved and treated people so well with respect. So I had a wonderful father. But the mom, so much of the time, is the nucleus around which a family gravitates, the social planner, and just that little
Yes. Moms are
sparkle.
CEOs of families.
Absolutely. Speak it, sister. Speak it,
Chief
sister.
everything officer.
That's right. That's exactly right. So it's just in my basic nature. I'm an encourager. That's my spiritual gift. And so I just have a real heart, Bethany, to walk alongside people who are in dark places and need to move forward in victory, who are in these fragile places. And that gives me such joy because I want to infuse them with hope and joy and encouragement and peace and perseverance. And that's again why I wrote my book. And in the book, at the end of the 7 major chapters, it's really 3 sections, but the second section has 7 chapters, like restoring momentum, restoring perseverance, restoring joy, restoring relationships, restoring community, restoring passion, restoring purpose. At the end of those 7 chapters are summary points, but then applications, real life applications, because I don't want to just state the problem, which is life is hard, exclamation point, bolded, underlined, life is hard. But I want to give your listeners, your viewers, the readers of Restored, practical and real life solutions to how do you do that? How do you preserve? How do you restore perseverance? How do you restore joy? And encourage them. So and also part of this idea of writing about Restored is reconnecting them with themselves, with others, and with God. Because the bottom line is, if you would say to me, Cindy, summarize your book, just summarize it. I could do it with 2 words. 2 words after all that we've said. Trust God. Trust God. Trust God. Now, it takes a ways to get there. And there are ways you have to get there to when literally seismic, catastrophic things are pummeling you, like losing a loved one, like a prodigal child, like a devastating, life-altering diagnosis pummels you. But Bethany, in today's world, life is such a grind. Just the daily hardships of being discouraged or discontent or in despair over just what we read in the news, man's inhumanity to man, just the way the volatility of the world is, that just grieves our heart. So it doesn't even have to be this seismic catastrophe, but that we all need to be able to trust God no matter what happens, because many times we cannot control our circumstances, but we can control our responses to our circumstances. We can choose joy, and it's an intentional decision, but only you can do that if you really trust God and you know He has your best interest at heart.
That is such wisdom. Everything that you just said. It is so difficult in life, and it's so convoluted. You got all these things coming at you, but then you just simplified it so well. Number one, listeners have heard us say this, that you have a choice. You don't have to react. You can choose a response, because your feelings are going to lie to you. Your emotions are going to lie to you and want you to react in a certain way. But that's where the choice comes in. You can choose a response, choose joy. And I think so many of us forget that. So another thing that we talk a lot about on this podcast is having mantras, something to disrupt our thinking from going that natural route, the easier path of reaction, to help us stop, capture our thoughts, as the Bible says, and then refocus so that we choose a Christ-like response. And I love what you said, trust God. And so guys, if you're going through hardship, Cindy's given us this mantra: stop the thinking, stop the spiral of, oh my gosh, and then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and how am I going to do this, and how am I going to do that? And then the anxiety and the fear and all that grows. Stop the thinking, stop that spiral, and just say, I'm going to trust God. I'm going to trust God.
That's right.
And then He'll work it out.
He will work it out. And there's one other little part of this that's really, really important. And I know you believe that because we've talked about this, Bethany, and that is the importance of community. Life is relational. God made man and woman to be in relationship with one another, with others. Life is relational. And we all need to belong somewhere. It's called community. And community is just a group of compassionate, dedicated, and engaged people who we can trust, who have our back, so that when we are in those dark valleys, Bethany, and again, we're all going to be there. Oh my gosh, our family was a family in crisis when
Mhm.
Bob was going, and we were going as a family. William, Bob, and I, we were going through our cancer journey. But our community came alongside us, carried us, and undergirded us with prayer, with all sorts of services that they did for us. One of our dear friends is an international pianist, and when he was not touring the world, he would come and play on our untuned piano. Now, who has time to tune a piano when your husband is going through a cancer journey? So he would play this fabulous, well-known, beloved international pianist would come and play on our untuned piano. Bob would be in the bedroom. We lived in the hospital quite a bit, but when he was
Mhm.
home, Stephen would play, and Bob said his pain would go away when Stephen
Oh,
was playing on our piano. So community, and that's so important because the enemy wants us to be isolated and lonely. And it will not go well for us, Bethany, when we
mhm.
are isolated, because then we can't hear the voices of our comrades who are undergirding us and are talking victory to us. We only hear the voice of the enemy saying, you have no value. You earn this. It's like Job. His three friends
Mhm.
said, you deserve this. You just need
Yeah.
to get over it. You need to get better. You did something to deserve this catastrophic situation you're in. Well, that's just not true. And your community can literally lift you out of that dark space. And so we all need community to be supportive. And that's
Mhm.
very important as well. I have a
I
whole
could not
chapter.
agree more. Thank goodness, because I think that if we are left alone to our thoughts, it will, talking about that spiral, it will spiral
Oh,
out of control. I'm
absolutely.
not the mother I should be, the wife I should be, the father I should be, the husband I should be, the leader I should be. I can't do this. All of these manipulation of our emotions that
Yes,
if they're left unchecked, and so often God will
absolutely.
use the hands and feet of other people to carry you through. I think about, you know,
Yes,
the friends who carried their disabled friend, the paralyzed man on the mat, and then broke the hole in the
yes,
ceiling to get him to Christ.
yes.
You need a community that will get you to Jesus whenever you're unable, whenever you're the paralytic. And we all go through seasons where sometimes we're the friends, sometimes we're the paralytic.
That's
And
exactly right. And you know what's interesting, Bethany, that I had to learn something through this. And I talk about this in my book because I, like you, I'm sure, I always was the one that gave and that brought what was needed and wrote the notes and was there to meet the brokenhearted. But when you're the recipient of that,
Mhm.
there's a humility that goes with that. And it was hard for me initially because my pride got in the way. Oh, I don't need any help. Oh, I can handle this. It's just Jesus and
Mm,
me, you know,
yeah.
and of course Bob giving us that mission statement. But what you do, if you do not allow people to reach out to you, you are denying them of using their spiritual gifts of service and hospitality. You're denying them their ability to love on you well. So when I finally realized I need some help, it after a while I was just cherishing and reveling in the sweetness of that community of literally a pool of people just reaching out to the Simmons family, which, as I
Mhm.
said, was a family in crisis. And they were blessed by being able to help us. And then we were blessed. And then seasons change. And then I can go back to helping people. And I mean, but we have to make sure that we understand that when people reach out to us, we need to humble ourselves and to receive it. And it makes such a difference. It's such a game changer.
And I really feel like you're speaking to the heart of so many leaders who are high achievers, go-getters,
Yes,
self-sufficient.
yes,
I can do this
yes,
thing. And when
yes,
you're going through hardship, it's not about your pride. You've got to die to self there. And I love that you're talking
exactly.
about humility and saying, I can't do this. I need to share. And so often we don't share out of shame, out of,
Yes, Yes,
how are they going to judge me or look at me saying I can't do it all? Well, here is flash, you can't do it all. Let's just newsworthy right
absolutely.
there. So
Absolutely.
it's about that
Absolutely.
posture of the heart. I think leaders, yes, I know that you are a hustler, baby, but you have got to humble yourself and say, I can't do it all, and allow other people to come in and have community, people that you share with, share your struggles. Sometimes you're carrying them,
Absolutely.
sometimes they're carrying you, but allow that. That is such
Absolutely.
wise advice. And I just appreciate that so much that you're giving that to us.
Thank you. Bethany, you had said something a little earlier too. I think it's important because I've worked for now 44 years with Wipeout Kids Cancer, and that was birthed when I was seated on that uncomfortable pew seat at 12 years old. And I was just so brokenhearted. And even at that point, even though I didn't know Jesus yet, in scripture and Psalms, it says that God comforts the brokenhearted. And he was comforting me without me even knowing it. But at that moment, I said, someday, somehow, some way, I want to do something to eradicate the scourge of a disease that had taken my mom's life. So when I came back from college, I started Wipeout Kids Cancer in 1980.
Wow.
And the idea of this is that activism isn't a new phenomenon, nor is grief a new emotion. But when you merge those two, real healing takes place. In other words, when you're other focused, when you're not self focused, when you're other focused, when you want to invest in people's lives, when you want to give back, there is a joy in that. And I have over these last 44 years, because Wipeout Kids Cancer benefits pediatric cancer, and we raise lots and lots of money, millions and millions of dollars for national, very novel, very innovative pediatric cancer research projects. And we have support services that give hope and comfort to children and their families, these courageous young heroes with cancer and their resilient families. But what I have found, I have gone to a number of funerals, and I talk a lot to mothers who have lost their children. They have this chunk of time now that they used to go to the hospital to get infusions with have their children be infused in chemotherapy, or going to treatments, or stay in the hospital. So they have this chunk of time. And so what I encourage them to do is, yes, pause, take a time to grieve, take a moment to pivot. I think we learned that word pivot from the pandemic. Take a moment to get settled in, take a breath and grieve. But then once you are in a good place again, we can't stay neutral forever. We cannot be the victims. We have to be the victors. Life beckons us forward.
Oh,
When it's that time, when life is beckoning us forward, then be other focused and do things for others. Find something that you can put your passions into, your excitement into. Do volunteer work with charities. And many of these moms now work with pediatric cancer organizations, or have started organizations knowing what mothers and families feel like, and certainly fathers too, of losing children. But do other things so that you are other focus, not self focus. And because grief needs to have an action behind it to really fully heal, I believe. And again, to know that Jesus, again, trusting him, and just if you don't know an organization, pray about what to do, journal, have a support partner or partners there to talk to when you're sad, when you're kind of going back through the brokenheartedness of losing a loved one. But Bethany, even when you are a believer, because life is hard, loved ones will still die. Chaos and tragedy still happens, suffering happens, and certainly failure happens. But yet, when you know Jesus and you trust in him, he will rescue you and restore you. That is what he does. We serve a great Savior.
amen. And just thinking about everything that you shared, I love that and I'm going to say those words again, from victim to victor. And whether you're grieving the loss of a loved one or grieving the loss of a business, all of our entrepreneurs out
Yes,
there, it's so
yes,
hard to start a business, and so many die within the first year, the second
yes,
year, third year.
absolutely.
Or you're grieving. I had this big vision for how I was going to lead this team, and it is not playing out the way that I thought it was going to. And you're grieving that journey that you thought you were going to have that you're not
Yes.
having. So whether it's from the absolute tragic, the death of a loved one, all the way to a dream, a dying, you're still grieving. And so all of
Absolutely.
these are parallels. And the wisdom that you've just shared is you turn to Christ. You have that feeling, yes, but then you put action behind it. How do you turn and go from victim to victor? And that is through Jesus. That's how you're able to
Jesus.
wake up the next day and keep moving forward. That
Absolutely.
perseverance. I love it. And
Absolutely.
I think in the book of James talks so much about going through
Oh,
hardships and then,
totally.
how it builds
Yes.
character and endurance and perseverance and hope and all those things.
Perseverance.
Yes.
Exactly. Because
So good.
trials test the consistency of your faith. And that's what James is all about. You're right.
Mhm. Man. So if there is one lesson that you've learned from coming back from life's broken places, what would it be and how would you encourage others with it?
Yes, yes. There's a compilation of a couple, since we know that suffering is a universal experience. Again, focus on, don't forget to remember what God has done for you in the past, how he's rescued
Mhm.
you, how he's carried you. I mean, the fact that you're still standing, even though you might have wounds, can be absolutely a testimony to God's goodness and outrageous grace. So don't forget to remember how
Mhm.
God has rescued and restored you in the past, and he will do it again and again and again. And then that leads to the second kind of connective, symbiotic principle, that even though many times you can't control your circumstances, you can control your response to your circumstances, as we've talked about, because that's very important, that life has intentional decisions to make, and joy is an intentional decision. And then again, that just life without Jesus is so hard, and that we need just to understand that community, how community is important, and how
Mhm.
we need to have a group of people undergirding us through community, and that community group will help us also endure the two by fours that we've talked about in life.
Yeah.
So again, that don't forget to remember what God has done in the past, that many
Mhm.
times we can't control our circumstances, so choose joy. And then to establish a community for yourself that will walk with you, carry you, and many times literally just be your stretcher bearers, that will be those who just are walking with you every step of the way to get you through this dark period.
Oh, that was such good. Guys, those are your key takeaways. Remember
Yes,
what God has done. Remember his character. So often we put
yes,
our character
yes.
on God. No, don't bring God down to our level. He's higher than that.
No, no, he's worthy to be followed.
Yeah.
He's worthy to be followed,
Yes.
Bethany. He's not gonna, we don't want him to
Yeah.
come down to yourself. We don't want him to lower the bar. We need to literally follow
Yes.
him.
Absolutely. I love it. So the three key takeaways that I just heard you say are just remember who God is and his character. The second is choose, stop those spirals and choose joy, choose love, choose those things. And then three, have that community with you.
Yes,
They're going to
yes,
be what helps you. Thank you
absolutely.
so much for that. I can't help but notice, your professional career, besides serving on all these boards and starting, foundations and things like that, is public relations.
Yeah.
You are the PR person. I almost feel like you are the PR person for, as we all should be, for just the kingdom of God, of how well you love and encourage other people. But your specific target with just the PR of who you are is helping people from very broken places find hope again, find joy again. And I love
Yes.
you listed there's 7 chapters. I feel like it's pieces of puzzles that we've lost, right? Imagine our bodies, ourselves being this really complex puzzle. And when tragedy happens, our puzzle's just broken up and puzzle pieces go flying everywhere. It's like, well,
Everywhere.
I don't even know where my joy puzzle is. I can't even find it. I can't put it back
Yes.
together, even if I wanted to. And
Yes.
you are the PR, you're the public relations. Say, hey, friend, I know I've been there. And here's where we find the joy piece of the puzzle again and put it back together. And I just
Yes.
think it's so beautiful.
Yes.
And I thank you for your work.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's interesting you would say that, because when I was sitting on that pew, the thought that I had is, God, you have our life, or the Brinker family, because that was my maiden name. The Brinker family is like a 1,000 piece puzzle. That's exactly what I thought, that had been thrown haphazardly to the wind. And we were supposed to put it back together. I said, God, I don't even know where to find the pieces. So to your point, that is so true. And Bethany, really the way I look at business, and yes, I ran, I was a partner in a public relations firm and also advertising firm. We were really a complete marketing and public relations and advertising firm. And I just look, for me, I look at business as a platform. And it's a platform that God gives you then to encourage people. And some of platforms are bigger and some are smaller, but whatever your platform is in business, you've got people that are behind you. And the old adage is pioneers are the ones with arrows in their back, because as leaders, we can either lead, and I told my son this as he was growing up, as leaders, we either can lead people on the path of destruction or the path of righteousness. So as presidents, as CEOs, as chairmen, and I was in business for over 30 years, I felt, yes, my business was to deliver good services, to deliver good communication services and help my clients have favorable, optimal publicity. But I looked also, and we had a rather large employee base. I looked at being a leader to my employees, who I consider my teammates, that really were the most important people in our business. Yes, our clients are very important because, clients are good for business, but who serves them? It's your team. So I looked at myself that my responsibility as a leader was to encourage them, and to encourage them to be better, and to encourage them and how to learn. And we encourage them to take courses, and we also encourage them to give back to the community. I mean, how to be a better person, also how to be a better employee. So I think that leadership is definitely, when you are a leader, that you have a responsibility to be worthy to be followed, to follow my dad's word.
So good. And it all comes full circle. All right. Well, you have talked about so many amazing things on how we can get through hardship as leaders. You've told us, things that we can do, and a lot of them just sitting in the presence of God and allowing Him to do the work on us. But let's talk about the opposite. What is one poor decision you would warn our leaders to avoid? Like, leader, don't do this thing. You're better than that.
Yes. Oh my goodness. That could be its own show, actually, Bethany. That's a great question. I would say, first and foremost, is it's so important in hiring good people, and hiring people that know what the business is about, that have knowledge of your industry and have a passion for your industry. We would give prospective employees a writing test, because writing and public relations is the nucleus around which our business gravitated. So make sure that you have people, employees, teammates who really share your vision and are good at what they do, because employees who aren't, that they're really not there to be a part of a team or to serve well, they can really infect. It's almost like a cancer, that they can create bitterness or anger or just sloppy work, and that can really hurt a business. And then also with that is to continue to pursue your mission, because so many companies and businesses, they get a little restless, I found, and they forget what their core competencies are, what their core business mission is. And for example, my dad, being in the restaurant business, was involved with a hamburger company, not Chili's, but another that he was involved with, that it was a fast food hamburger company, but it added veal parmesan to its menu. Now he said, Cindy, who goes to a fast food hamburger restaurant to order veal parmesan? It's just that somehow someone had gotten a little off focus and had forgotten what they served. They served very good hamburgers, and they served chicken sandwiches. I mean, things that you do. But again, you don't serve veal parmesan at a fast food hamburger restaurant. So
no, I don't think I would eat that.
No. And I wouldn't want you to, Bethany. So again, watch who you hire, because we made some hiring decisions, and that really hurt us, that weren't weren't people who really shared our vision and kind of weren't as capable as we needed. And that can be very devastating to a company. And then make sure you keep on task. Keep
Yes.
on task with what it is that you're serving, and don't get restless. And certainly you can broaden what you do. And we broadened we broadened social media. We had a whole diversity department with Spanish speaking fabulous people because so many of our clients needed that. So you broaden what you do, but it's all within the realm of your core competencies. So I would say those are the two things that just I know to be true because there were some mistakes I made early on in that.
I understand that. Hiring practices and remembering core competencies. Such great
Yeah.
advice. Okay, so Cindy, where can our listeners go to learn more about you, your work, and where can we go to buy the book?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Bethany. Well, the book is sold in most bookstores and of course on Amazon. So anybody can purchase Restored Reconnecting Life's Broken Pieces there. Our website is brinkersimmons.com. And I would encourage people to go and onto brinkersimmons.com because it will further introduce you to the breadth and depth of Restored's message. There's a number of quotes in there from the book and also shares what endorsers had to say. So that gives you a good perspective of the message that we're trying to portray in Restored. And then to follow me on social media platforms, it's cindybrinkersimmons.author. cindybrinkersimmons.author. And
Awesome.
I welcome on the website, you can write in. And if you want to, I do have an email. It's restored at brinkersimmons.com. So restored at
Perfect.
brinkersimmons.com. So please feel free to write and I try and respond.
That's amazing. I love it. I love how, just personable you are. That's the PR thing about you. I think it's just built in you to encourage and want to connect with people.
It,
And guys, I
it's my
want to
personal.
remind you, it is. I want to remind you, all of that will be in the show notes, but also remember all net proceeds from the Restored book sales are donated to Wipe Out Kids Cancer and the Maureen Connolly Brinker Tennis Foundation. So please go buy the book. You're not going to be disappointed and you're going to need it because hard times are coming. So you need
They
this to
are.
get through.
Trouble, you don't come looking for trouble, but it comes looking for you, Bethany.
All the time, all the time. Cindy, thank you so much for being here and just sharing your story and just honoring the legacy of your parents and the way that you lead and the way that you're encouraging other people.
It was an absolute joy, Bethany. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Guys, until next time, continue putting in the work of building your life and leadership on the rocks, the essential rocks. God bless. Remember, the most essential rock you can build your life and leadership on is the rock of Jesus Christ. Today's Bible verse comes from Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Hey, it's Bethany again. If you're enjoying the Leadership on the Rocks podcast, be sure to subscribe and follow so you don't miss a single episode. Also, be sure to rate the show. We hope to earn 5 stars in serving you in leadership, and through your ratings, it'll help us get the word out about what we do here at Leadership on the Rocks. If you feel this podcast is helpful, be sure to share it with your friends, family, and coworkers, or anyone who wants to grow in leadership, but also have harmony between their work and home life. Thanks, and I'll see you again in the next episode.